I'm Greg Johnson, a member of the Board of Pardons and Parole. This is the evidentiary hearing for Gerald Edgar Dickson. Is that you, sir?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And you're the fourth?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Offender number 200087. Obviously, we're on video today, so if at any point you can't hear or see, please let staff know so we can get that fixed, okay? All right. Counsel, are there any preliminary matters?
No, thank you.
State may have one standing, and we have UTA Detective Nate Clark here, and maybe we could ask him the question, and if Ms. Conyers thinks it'd be productive to have a breakout with me, I'm happy to do that. It's the state's understanding that charges are being screened like very, very soon. If they would have been screened sooner than this hearing, we would have probably talked about that, but that's my understanding. And so if that's the case, maybe myself and Ms. Conyers could chat if she's willing to, but we could also hear from Detective Clark to make sure that's accurate.
Okay, Ms. Conyers?
Sure, I'd love to chat about that. That also makes my client anxious to be having this hearing without having his criminal charges, knowing that the board could take a position on these parole violation without the criminal case. So however, I also don't want to be sitting here for another 6 months. So I'd want to move forward with an can I have a breakout, Mr. Ferris? That would probably be best. Thanks.
Yes, Sergeant Scott, can you put the attorneys in a breakout room, please?
Could we ask the detective while he's here
Okay,
if he can give us an ETA, and then we'll have a more productive conversation, because I don't know.
okay. Officer Clark, do you have an update on pending charges?
I do not have an exact ETA. I'm exploring other avenues. I recently got back cell phone data from T-Mobile that was unhelpful. I was going to place my bet on the cell phone data and cell phone site towers. T-Mobile was unable to provide that. It's apparently, even though the phone number was being used, Gerald was communicating by other means besides text and phone calls from that particular phone number. So they had no data, including cell phone site location. However, I do have other means to explore at this time. I wish I could give you an ETA. I'm 100% convinced that Gerald was involved in the theft of these two vehicles, as well as several other felonious criminal activities, if not the main conspirator. However, I am not comfortable presenting the case before district attorney as of just yet. I have wonderful circumstantial evidence, but nothing concrete to back up my suspicions at this point. But the case has remained open since I received it October 1st. It has not been closed or inactivated, and I am continuing to explore other options, as well as contact with other police departments in Davis and Weber County.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Ferris, are you ready for a breakout?
Yeah, yes, please. Detective, so can you tell us that you will screen the case within the next 30 days, the next 2 weeks? Can you tell us that at this time?
I don't believe so. That is going to come down to the timeline from data returns from cell phone related carriers. So I can't give you an exact ETA. I'm hopeful within 2 to 3 months that the case will be completed and screened with the district attorney's office.
That's what we were looking for, was kind of a timeline like that. Thank you. Sorry about that. We should be ready for break.
No problem.
Okay. All right, Sergeant Scott? Okay, we're back on the record for Gerald Edgar Dixon, offender number 200087. Counsel, do you have an update?
I
Looks like-
guess our update is, and I appreciate Mr. Ferris's time, and I did speak with my client. We don't really have an update. We're just going to proceed with the evidentiary hearing based on what can be proved here today and leave it to the board. I know charges may be filed. I hope they're filed sooner than later, but I guess that's out of my control.
Okay, Mr. Ferris?
We did our level best, but it looks like we are gonna have to go forward with the evidentiary. We'll just have the one witness, and so I think we'll get back on track time-wise.
Okay. Mr. Dixon, we need to swear you in with your right hand as best that you can. Do you swear to tell the truth and be accurate in today's proceeding? Okay, thank you. You can put your hand down. Did you receive at least 7 days' notice of this hearing?
Yes, sir.
And did you receive your disclosure, your blue packet?
Yes, sir.
Okay, do you have any questions or concerns about your disclosure?
No, sir.
Okay, did it look accurate? Is that, yes? Okay. All right. And have you had enough time to meet with your attorney?
Yes, sir.
Okay, do you feel like you're ready to go forward today? Do you feel like you're prepared to go forward today?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Just brief status update. So you already admitted to allegation 3, that was the Adderall. Parole was already revoked on June 16th, 2025. And so we're here today for allegations 1 and 2, both of which are receiving or transferring a stolen vehicle. Mr. Ferris, how would you like to proceed?
Just for clarification on the
Mhm.
warrant request I'm looking at, looks like allegation 3 lists methamphetamine. I don't know if I'm reading off a different one or if that matters to the board since parole was revoked, but I think you might have mentioned Adderall, and mine says methamphetamine, maybe.
Mine shows that that was amended at the last hearing. There was an emotion or a motion to amend that. And so the Adderall was amended.
Very well. Thank you for that clarification. And then with that, the state just has our Detective Nate Clark from UTA Police Department, who's present, if he could be sworn in, and we could proceed.
Okay. Detective Clark, would you raise your right hand, please? Do you swear to tell the truth and be accurate in today's proceeding?
I do.
Okay, thank you. You can put your hand down. Please state your name for the record.
Nathan Clark.
Okay. Mr. Ferris, go ahead and proceed.
Thanks. Ms. Conyers, I was touch base with you and see if there's anything we might be able to stipulate to as far as, I assume we could stipulate to identification of the suspect.
As a parolee, yes, but maybe not the suspect
Okay.
involved in this.
Oh, very well. I had also provided a couple of screenshots that were part of the investigative file and would be proposing that those be used as exhibits as well. Did you get a chance to review those?
I did, but I didn't know what dates they came from.
Okay. I could ask those questions and maybe ask you this question at the end to see, or
Okay.
when it's time to admit them, I could ask, I'm sure.
So we're admitting that the text messages came from his phone. I just don't know the date.
Okay.
So
Very
that's
well.
it.
I'll ask some clarification questions on that and along with any photos that were in the police reports. And then also, I
Perfect.
think our last items were just a couple of Vigilant, which is a software program, I believe, related to locations. And I'll try and do the same thing, get a foundation there, and we can
Perfect.
work that out then. So thank you. Thanks, Member Johnson. And so Detective Clark, can you tell us where you're employed?
With the Utah Transit Authority Police Department.
Thank you. Approximately how long have you been so employed?
I've been with the Transit Police Department coming up on 4 years. March 1st will be 4 years.
Okay, thanks. Do you have other law enforcement or corrections experience?
Yes, I retired after 21 years from the Unified Police Department and Salt Lake County Sheriff's Office, the same department.
Okay, great. Okay, thank you. And so if I could take you back, and if I'm off on any of my dates or anything that for that matter, feel free to correct me just so we have an accurate record for the board of pardons and to review. But if I could take you back to on or about 9/27 of last year, would you have been on duty that day?
It's possible, depending on if I were, I work Tuesday through Friday, so
Okay.
I'd have to check a calendar.
Okay. As part of your duties as a detective, at any point, did you investigate a case that involves the offender who brings us here today?
Yes, I did.
And do you have his name?
Yes, Gerald Dixon.
Okay. And the allegations that have us here today are he's a suspect in 2 vehicle thefts occurring. In one part, it says on or about 9/27/2024. There does happen to be another date of 10/24/2024. And so maybe as we talk, we could get a clarification on that. And so that's basically if you, I can refer you to refresh your memory if you need to on the 2 police reports you provided, which were also provided to the parties that are here. And so, see what the easiest way to do. So let's first look at incident report 240-27576.
Yes, sir.
And were you involved in this case?
Yes,
Okay, and is the offender the suspect in this case?
yes, he is.
And if you have it handy, and if you need a moment to refresh your recollection, I know our board member would probably allow that. Could you give us approximate, well, an exact date and time if you have it, and if not approximate?
Yes, approximate. So both cases, 240-27576 and 240-27608, were both assigned to me on October 1st. However, both of them were reported on September 27th as 2 separate stolen vehicles, and both occurred at the same location, at the same exact part of the parking lot within approximately 45 minutes of each other.
Okay.
Those times being approximately 1:45 in the morning till just before 3 a.m.
Very well, thank you. And so if you could, so being a detective, were you given this case after some initial officers had done some reports and turned them over to you?
Correct.
Okay, and then could you tell us what you did on the case once you received it and how, well, if you could do that. I'm looking for chronologically the high points of things that you may have done or saw or found out that show that our allegations against this suspect are true.
Yes, sir. So initially, these were not taken as information reports by our officers, initial officers. This case started as a Roy Police Department officer located a truck, an F-350 truck in the neighborhood of, if I could review my notes and get you that exact address, if that's all right.
Is that okay, Member Johnson?
Yes.
I apologize for the delay. I have a lot of information to go through. So, so the Roy Police Department officer came across. I believe this was around 3:30, 4 o'clock in the morning, somewhere around there. This F-350 parked at 3798 South, 2050 West in Roy. This is approximately a quarter mile from the Roy front runner station. The officer observed that the window was broken and that the steering column had been damaged and was parked in a suspicious manner. The Roy Police Department officer was able to get a hold of the registered owner, Joel Knighton, and he confirmed that the truck had been stolen, as it should be parked at the Roy front runner station. Roy Police Department then contacted the Weber County Crime Scene Investigation Unit, Weber County CSI, who came out and processed the truck. In the meantime, the registered owner, Joel Knighton, responded not only to where his truck was located, but also to the Roy front runner station, where he had a second truck parked for long-term parking, a work truck that was also missing and stolen. Our initial officers were contacted by Roy Police Department, and they took the initial cases on both stolen trucks with the information provided by the Roy Police Department. And subsequently, those officers in their investigation went back on UTA security footage, found both trucks, or at least one of the trucks leaving, and a gray Scion XD that was most likely involved in the case. Is the second stolen truck was seen following the Scion out of the parking lot. That Scion arrived with its lights off and parked in the parking lot near or next to one or both of the stolen trucks.
Were you able to find out who the owner of the Scion was?
Yes, it was. So first and foremost, we got a report back from Weber County CSI unit. They had obtained a print from the driver's side door of the stolen F-350 recovered in that neighborhood in Roy that gave a positive APHIS hit to Gerald Dixon. I took all this information along with screenshots of the trucks and the Scion, and I gave it to Ashley Larson with SIAC, the State Information and Analysis Center. And she discovered that Gerald is residing, he's on parole and residing at, apologize, let me find the exact address of his house. Gerald was residing at 3874 South, 1925 West. This is approximately a block away from where that F-350 was located. And further, the residence where Gerald is living is owned by Sandra Keys. Sandra Keys is the owner of a registered 2013 gray Scion XD. That was an exact match for the suspect vehicle seen on film.
Okay. Just gonna do something real quick. Okay, and so I kind of cut you off, but it appears that you received the case from other law enforcement agencies who did the initial reports, since it appears to have happened on UTA property, and you work with UTA. It was eventually turned over to you, and in your coordination with other departments and crime scene folks, you've been able to list Mr. Dixon as your suspect, and that comes from a positive fingerprint of his on one of the stolen vehicles, and also the fact that the suspect vehicle that appeared at the location around the time of the theft is registered to his girlfriend's mother, Is that accurate so far?
If Sandra Keys is his girlfriend's mother, yes,
Okay.
that is accurate.
Thank you. And so with that, do you have other information related to your investigation that would be helpful for the Board of Pardons and Parole to consider when looking at these allegations?
Yes, I do.
Did you go ahead?
So shortly after this, I put out a bulletin specifically, well, all across the Utah through SIAC and also through Ogden's intelligence unit. I don't recall what they're called, crash or something like that. With this information, along with pictures of the suspect vehicle, everything else. Not only that, I have access to flock cameras. Now, there are flock cameras located along 4000 West, not far from where Gerald Dixon is living. That Scion did not get captured on those flock cameras around the time of the thefts, which makes sense since the car is registered very close and would not pass any of those flock cameras. The SIAC unit also did a write-up and gave me access to vigilant cameras, or did write-ups, provided information from vigilant cameras, which is kind of the competitor to flock, the license plate reader cameras that are situated in Davis and Weber County that did capture other times of that Scion driving in the area. Not around the specific time, but again, kind of building the case together. Shortly after I sent out this bulletin, I was contacted by a Pleasant View detective, Detective Braxton Lewis. Detective Lewis was investigating a residential burglary that had occurred in his city. He had obtained Ring doorbell camera from a neighbor of the victim that showed the suspect vehicle that clearly appears to be the stolen Ford F-450, the outstanding truck taken, the second truck taken from this case. Detective Lucas informed me that they had an informant that had named specific names of the people involved, specifically Gerald Dixon and his girlfriend and another male named Connor Brown, and that they were involved in numerous burglaries, tow yards and everything else, and driving the stolen F-450.
Okay. And did you have occasion to seize or look at Mr. Dixon's cell phone?
Yes, I did. So on October 23rd, I was in contact with with Agent Kelly Allen, and I scheduled an interview with Gerald at Kelly Allen's office.
Okay. And at that time, did you look at Mr. Dixon's cell phone?
I did not specifically. Agent Allen was able to go through Gerald's phone.
Okay. He's here
However,
today,
he was able, yes, but he
he's
did show me,
and we'll call him in a minute, but go right ahead.
yes, Agent Allen, as I conducted the interview, was able to find some interesting messages and showed them to me. I took a couple screenshots of those messages from my phone.
Okay. And do you have those handy by chance?
I do.
Okay. If you could, these were provided to the Board of Pardons and Parole and also to council. And so if you could pull up, let me see how mine are labeled. I see one that says screen pick 1.
Yes, sir.
At the top, it says 12:19 a.m. You have that one?
Yes, I do.
Can you tell us what this is? Can you explain to us what this screenshot is?
Yeah, it's a text conversation to an unknown person from Gerald's phone. It says, "I'll have a nice one picked out and we can leave Ange on the main road as a lookout. We will need truck to load all tools and other stuff." Then there's a screenshot from Google Earth of a particular location, I've not been able to identify that yet, where that is. It says it's a town truck shop / mechanic plus a huge construction gated spot. The old with spotter is prime. We can drive in the Scion, or better would be with the truck. We could get one there, but I'd rather be double backed up.
Do you know what that means?
I'm
Why
assuming
am I
that
for this then. That's what I'm getting at. Why do you guys keep fucking coming at me with
Mr.
shit?
Dixon,
Hey,
Mr. Dixon,
Um,
Mr. Dixon,
Sir, Johnson, but this is
Mr.
about
Dixon,
4 months I've been waiting.
Mr.
they just keep-
Dixon. You can talk with your attorney and you'll have a chance to say what you need to say.
Sorry, Mr. Johnson.
Okay, you will get the final word today, okay?
Okay.
All right. Go ahead, Mr. Ferris.
Thanks. So do you know what this text means?
it definitely points to that they are looking to burglarize or enter this property with intent to commit theft, and using Angie as a lookout, and using the truck to load the tools and property.
Okay. And then now if you could take a look at what was marked as screen pick 2. If you could describe that to us once you find it.
Yes, sir. At the top is another photographed Google Earth with a hand-drawn circle over a portion of the yard. And it says, "I'm in. Where are you? Thinking about running this mission?" ? Response from the unknown person says, "Tonight, I'll have the car and Megan will be in detox." From Gerald's phone, "Bet. Now we are cooking with fire. LOL. I'm just about to fully wake up and get ready. Liz has not updated me on the truck. If not, I'll be driving by it within the next couple hours. I want to at least get that race car gas can." And then below it, WID, "What are you doing?" I'm assuming ? The response, "Driving to Riverdale." And his response from Gerald's phone, "I'm headed to my Grams in North Ogden."
Okay. And incidentally, did you have the dates that these texts were going back and forth?
I do not. They are not on the screen itself.
Okay. But is that to the right of the screenshot? Is that Mr. Dixon sitting right there?
Yes, it is.
Okay. And so he was in the room and this was clearly his cell phone. Is that your testimony?
That is correct.
Okay. And then, so Member Johnson, the state would move to admit the 2 proposed exhibits that were provided as part of our discovery, labeled Screen Pick 1 and Screen Pick 2, now that they've been authenticated by Detective Clark.
Ms. Conyers?
I'm going to object on relevance without a date. I have no idea if these are relevant at all.
Okay. Mr. Ferris, any response to that?
The state would just say that in each of the pictures, you can see Mr. Dixon in the room by his face tattoos, and he's been identified by the detective. Our next witness will be Kelly Allen, his agent, who is in the room. And so if nothing else, we have an agent who's going to testify that he told the offender to turn his phone over. He turned it over, and these pictures or this text string was pulled up, and he's literally in the picture. So the date, we haven't tried to tie anything to a certain date. We're just trying to let the board know how this offender has been doing on parole, which has not been stellar if we take for face value what was being said in this text. But I think the state's met its burden to say that phone belongs to that guy in the picture, and he was in his agent's office and turned the phone over. So whether or not we know the exact date, we have the timestamp, but whether or not we have the exact date isn't part of our what I feel like we would need to prove today to carry the day.
And we will submit on authentication. I agree that that is my client's phone and my client's in the background. So that's not a question. What's a question is the relevance to these allegations.
Okay. All right, let's go ahead and I'll take that under advisement. Mr. Ferris, you're
Okay.
later going to be calling another witness, and then Ms. Conyers, you can make further objection, maybe at that point, okay?
Very well.
Mr. Ferris, anything further for this witness?
Not at this time, thank you.
Okay, Ms. Conyers?
So I guess, officer, in summation, the camera from the surveillance video at the Roy front runner station did not give very good pictures of the suspects. Is that true?
That is true.
Okay, the surveillance video also didn't capture a license plate to the Scion.
No,
Is that also
it
true?
did not.
Okay. Okay, and did you bring any of that fingerprint evidence with you today, or have you submitted that?
No, the Weber County CSI report is attached to my report. But I do not have that actual fingerprint or anything else. I do have the Weber County Crime Scene Unit report that is attached to mine.
Okay, you don't have any personal knowledge. You were told what the fingerprint evidence was, but you don't have personal knowledge about it. Is that a fair statement?
I'm failing to understand.
I guess
What the
I'm
question
asking,
is.
are you a fingerprint expert, sir?
No, I am not.
Did you do the analysis of the fingerprint here yourself?
No,
Okay, did you review the fingerprint evidence yourself?
no, I'm not an expert.
Okay, that's all the questions I have for Officer Clark.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Ferris?
Just briefly. So Detective Clark, did you know who the suspect was in this case before you received the positive hit on the fingerprint from the stolen car?
No, I did not.
And so you received information from some kind of an expert or some kind of a fingerprint analyst, is that correct?
That is correct.
And it just happened to come back to this offender?
That is correct.
This offender happened to live within a block of where the vehicle was recovered, the stolen vehicle was recovered?
Correct.
And in the home where he lived, the registered owner of the home happened to have Scion registered in their name?
Correct.
No further questions.
Okay, Ms. Conyers, any follow-up to that?
No,
Okay. Mr. Ferris, you have your next witness?
I do. I don't know how Ms. Conyers feels about releasing Detective Clark, but the
That's
state's
fine.
fine if she's fine.
no problem.
Can
Okay,
I ask one question, please?
Mr. Dixon?
Yes, sir. From my understanding, when I talked with Mr. Clark, they said it was on the outside passenger side door. Now he's saying it's on the driver's door. That was my
Okay,
biggest thing, is like, it's on the passenger side door, on the outside of it. And now he's saying it's on the front, like, help me with that one. Mr.
Okay,
Clark.
Mr. Dixon?
I'll ask Agent Clark that clarifying question if I just briefly,
Yes,
if we may ask where that fingerprint was found.
Are you asking me?
I am. Do you know?
Okay. My recollection was that it was on the driver's side door, but it could be on the passenger side door. I would have to look at the Weber County CSI report for that. If is that okay?
Please.
Sure.
Okay. Yes, it's according to the Weber County latent comparison report is the front passenger door outside.
okay. Ms. Conyers?
Thank you. That's, I think, all the questions we have.
Okay, Mr. Ferris, any follow-up on that?
Nothing further, thank you.
Okay, so we have a request on the table to excuse this witness, Ms. Conyers.
That's fine. Thank you.
Okay. So Officer Clark, you are free to go if you need to or want to, or you can remain on the line for the rest of the hearing and observe. It's your choice.
Yes, sir. I'll stay muted, but I'll stay on in case you need me further. Okay.
Okay, that's fine.
Thank you for appearing too.
All right. So Mr. Ferris, your next witness.
The state would now call Agent Kelly Allen.
Okay. Agent Allen.
Yes,
Okay, let's go ahead and get you sworn in. Would you raise your right hand, please? Do you swear to tell the truth and be accurate in today's proceeding?
I do.
Thank you. You can put your hand down. Would you state your name for the record?
It's Kelly Allen.
Okay. Go ahead, Mr. Ferris.
Thanks. Agent Allen, could you tell us where you're employed?
For the Utah Department of Corrections, Adult Probation and Parole.
Thank you. And approximately how long have you been so employed?
I've been employed by the Utah Department of Corrections since 2006.
Okay, thanks. Any other law enforcement or corrections experience?
No,
Thank you. And are you familiar with the offender that brings us here today?
yes, I am.
Thank you. And since you're my case manager / case officer, you've been allowed to be present during the testimony that was been given by Detective Clark. And so with that, I'd just like to talk initially about the screenshots that were provided as part of this proposed discovery. And so screenshot picture 1, you provided that to me, didn't you?
Yes, I did from Detective Clark's.
Okay, thanks. And so you provided it to me. If you were able to find that, probably can even anticipate my first question, which is, well, the first question is, whose phone is pictured? You would cut out, so sorry again.
Sorry, that is Gerald Dixon's.
Thank you. And did you ask him for his phone?
I did.
And on the side of the picture there, it looks like an arm with tattoos on it and a black shirt. Do you know who that is?
Yes, that's Gerald.
Okay. And then screen pic 2. Same question, is that his phone?
Yes,
And does that appear to be him in the background on the right side?
yes, it is.
Thanks. Do you happen to know the date of the text trail that was on those 2 slides?
I do not.
Okay. And with that, I'm going to ask you about how you became aware that he was a suspect in a case.
Okay. So I received a text message and a phone call from Detective Clark, as well as Detective Lucas. I believe he works for Harrisville, explaining that they believe that Gerald Dixon is the prime suspect in 2 stolen vehicles, as well as a possible residential burglary. And so with that information, I got a hold of Gerald and had him come in for an office visit and set up a meeting between Detective Clark and Gerald so that he could be interviewed.
Okay. And were you in the meeting?
I was.
Could you tell us chronologically how that went?
So during the whole thing, Gerald, from the beginning, was most interested just to see what evidence Detective Clark had against him. He had refused to answer any questions until, like, he would go back and forth and say that he will answer some questions and he does want to answer questions, but he wants to know what he has first against him, right? And then continued to go back and forth like that. And so there wasn't really a lot of information gathered. However, I do recall Gerald did admit that he did have contact with the truck at some point. I don't recall exactly, but I believe that he said someone had parked it in his driveway and he went and touched it, or some strange story like that. yeah, there wasn't a whole lot of information gathered from the interview until Gerald decided he didn't want to talk anymore.
Okay. And did you see the text messages back and forth that we just showed that we just talked about on the 2 screenshots?
Yes, I did. I'm the one who took the pictures of those texts.
Okay. And what's your impression of why would you have taken pictures of that and consider that potential evidence? Can you tell us?
So just in relation, they are talking about a truck, and it's me from my experience that they are planning to do something. From what I gathered, it appeared that they were planning to steal vehicle and or the race gas can and possibly some tools.
Okay. And so even if the state right now was not able to pin a date on that conversation, is the conversation still concerning to you as his agent?
Yes, that is.
Okay. For the reasons you just stated?
Yes.
Okay.
And I do have one comment on those text messages. I can elaborate on something.
Sure.
So after after I took those messages, just kind of standard practice, since it's not my case, the phone was requested by our Detective Lucas because he wanted to go through it. But at some point, and this gives us reasoning why we don't have the dates and all that stuff. So those messages were actually in an app called Signal. And Signal is an app that is, I guess, puts itself out there as a very private app. It's used for private messaging, encrypted messaging, like that. And so at some point during the process of giving the phone to Detective Lucas, those messages were wiped from the phone, even though the phone was on airplane mode and all that good stuff. So
Okay. So you took screenshots of the phone, and it's since been wiped.
yes.
And okay, I don't have any further questions at this time. Thank you.
Okay, Ms. Conyers?
I just have one clarifying question for those of us who are not as familiar with Signal. Could you have found the date on these text messages when you were scrolling through the phone at that time?
Yes, I could. If
Okay.
it was, I would have.
Okay, thanks.
Okay. Mr. Ferris, anything as a result of Ms. Conyers' question?
Nothing, thank you.
Okay. Anything further for this witness?
Nothing for this. He understands that he will remain in the hearing in case we make it to a disposition phase. Other than that, we would have no further questions at this time of him.
Okay. Ms. Conyers?
We will not be presenting any evidence or witnesses, primarily because we understand this will be charged and that would implicate some Fifth Amendment rights. So we will not be presenting anything here today.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right. Do we have closing arguments then?
Yes, thank you. The state, well, for the record, as everyone is aware, the burden of proof in this type of a hearing is preponderance of the evidence, and which is a lower hurdle than in a criminal prosecution. And so with that low hurdle, we believe we have met our burden. And we've had testimony from a detective who's investigating the case, who has told us that this offender is the suspect in 2 vehicles that were stolen. His fingerprints were recovered from at least one of the vehicles. The suspect vehicle is owned by the person he resides with, and happened to be within 1 block of where the recovered stolen vehicle was recovered, the offender's residence. And so with all this adding up, we believe we have met our burden and would ask that the board find in our favor and that the allegations number 1 and number 2 be found to be true. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Conyers?
Yes, I recognize it is quite a low burden. I believe, however, that the evidence here is still incredibly circumstantial and largely based on hearsay. Surveillance videos here don't capture pictures of the suspects, nor the plate of the vehicle itself. We don't know whether the Scion that allegedly belongs to Mr. Dixon's girlfriend's mother was actually around these locations at that time. We didn't receive any testimony today from an informant. We don't have any fingerprint evidence here other than that apparently some analysis was done, and we have text messages without a date. Based on that, even though it is a very low burden, I'm asking that the board find that these to strike these allegations and move forward with just the allegation of Adderall. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Conyers. All right, so Ms. Conyers suggested moving forward with at least the one allegation, which we've already accepted the admission, revoked parole. So we certainly could consider disposition on that allegation. I will take this decision under advisement for allegations 1 and 2. That needs to be considered by the full board. If there's no objection, then we can do some questions and recommendations regarding at least allegation 1. Ms. Conyers, is that how you'd like to proceed?
Yes, please. Thank you.
Okay. Mr. Ferris, any comment on that?
We agree with that. Thank you.
Okay. Mr. Dixon, just by way of explanation, so I'm not making any decision on the first 2 allegations regarding the stolen vehicles. That will be a decision for the board, but we can talk about the one allegation that you've admitted to. I do have some questions how you've been doing in prison since that time and potential plans for release. I'd like to ask those questions of you. Then we would hear from the state, then we'd hear from your attorney, and you will get the final word after that, Mr. Dixon. I would point out that you're represented by counsel. If there's anything that you are questioning about the first 2 allegations, you would need to say that through her. So we're not talking about those things right now, okay?
Okay.
All right, is that clear enough?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So Mr. Dixon, you were out on parole for just a few months, about 4.5. And again, I'm just talking about the Adderall. What do you think happened? How'd you kind of get tripped up on that?
It was low energy,
Mhm.
getting sidetracked.
Mhm.
I have ADHD. I've taken Adderall like my whole life,
Mhm.
and there's amphetamine, and it just, I don't know. I just started getting a little, I understand it's not right. Started getting stressed out over the girl. That was probably the biggest problem. It's the girlfriend.
Okay.
Stay, I guess. And it would help me focus more on my work and get back into the tune of where I needed to be.
All right. Is there something that in hindsight you think you could have done differently that would have helped you?
So I really was in the process, just got into Legal Human Services. My therapist was Amigo, and for that type of a medication and Xanax, you need to go through the Legal Human Services to be able to get placed on them. Like I went to the Tanner Clinic, straight up, no, you cannot be placed on these medications yet. There's a process because they're scheduled narcotics. So I had to go through the system, and I did leave with my 3rd visit to Anna Bacon, and we were just about to get
Mhm.
into line and get her to go see a doctor and get prescribed the right way.
Okay.
Where I was at. I had a visit with her, I believe, the day before I got arrested on this charge, or these charges.
Okay. All right. And then you've been back in prison. Are you getting what you need? What are you doing there?
I just got my medication balanced out, and I've been 45 days right up free, and I do feel good. I was stressed out now about all this, but other than that, I feel really good. I do, and I've got recovery lined up for if I were to parole, but I don't think I'm gonna be now. But if I were to get paroled, I got an inch straight into there. I wanted to continue with the Anabate Weaver Human Services. I'm liquid with what the board would want. Like I got everything lined up, whatever would be best for them and for me.
Mhm.
You know, I got addresses. I got like 3 different addresses I can go to. I do not feel Roy would be better for me. I'm trying to step away from that area. I got Pleasant View in North Ogden. Those are good areas for me. But really, I can go right into Weaver Recovery. And that's kind of what I was thinking. Because I know some of the write-ups I got are not the best, and then the board probably looking at that. But I don't know. I'm liquid with whatever you guys feel I should do.
Okay. And I do note that initially you had several write-ups, which isn't good. Some of that was talked about before. 2 of them are pending from January, but say in recent weeks you haven't had write-ups. So sort of what changed in the last 5 or 6 weeks?
And honestly, I'm just gonna tell how it is. I was freaking out. My mom's battling with COPD, so I was reacting, and that's where I got a couple of the write-ups. Is I wanted to see mental health, and I freak out. Anyways, I got moved down here, and I believe one of the officers sent an email or letting him know, hey, this dude is a problem. He has been a problem with us. So I got searched 6 times within a 30-day period, and that just kept me going, kept getting me more and more anxiety, and I kept freaking out because I felt like in my past, it's kind of how I've dealt with it, and it did not work for me at all. And I ended up getting pointed out and sent to Max. And since being in Max, the officers have just been very respectful and just awesome with me. And then that's all I needed. That's all I needed. I just needed to feel like they're there to help, not there to punish me and make me feel worse than I already do. And the Hickory staff have been excellent.
Okay.
I want to point out again that, Mr. Allen, you've been the best parole officer I've ever had. And regardless of whatever happens here, I appreciate you, man.
Okay. All right. And again, I'll come back to you for the final word, Mr. Dickinson, but let's go to the state now. Mr. Ferris, you have a recommendation?
Yes, I'll defer to his agent for the specifics, but our position is just in the few months he's been in since these allegations, he's had 3 write-ups, which is just under 1 a month. He's had 6 previous opportunities at parole, so we're heading quickly towards double digits. And so this is just he's not accepting parole as the gift that it is, and it just feels like this is one that should probably just expire his sentence and not be out in the community doing the stuff that he continues to do whenever given the opportunity of parole. And I'll yield the rest of my time to Agent Allen.
Okay. Just a note, expiration is March 9th of 2032.
Yeah, it just doesn't seem like he can function in society. So I think we just need to claim 1 bed for him and just keep him off the streets. If he's just going to continue to do this again and again, I think I can hold a straight face and still recommend that he expire.
Okay. Agent Allen? Do you have a recommendation on this case?
Yeah, so I would recommend, after hearing all of the information for these allegations and talking to Detective Clark as well as a Detective Lucas, I would recommend that he at least remain incarcerated until we know whether or not these charges are going to be filed. He does have a history of going on the run, going fugitive, and I worry that if he is let out to do parole again, he, knowing that these charges are hanging over his head, he may just go on the run. With that being said, if he is let out, I would absolutely recommend that he be released to a halfway house rather than just out to the streets. And I'd also further recommend that he have no contact with Drew Adams. She is I wouldn't say she's a suspect in this, but she is definitely part of, I would say, a co-conspirator in all of this. And she also has a drug history. And I think she's currently being sentenced to AP&P for probation for new drug charges. So I recommend that they have no contact with each other.
Okay. Thank you, Agent Allen. Ms. Conyers?
If we're just talking about possession of Adderall, I think that he's served enough time. It's been about 4 months, so I would ask for his release. Although I agree with Agent Allen that a halfway house is probably a good idea for him, as well as maybe no contact with that individual. And obviously continuing all the other parole, the rest of his parole agreement. I know that I can understand why the board may think, well, let's just hold them in custody until these charges are filed, but it's already been 6 months and they haven't been filed. And I don't know if it's going to be another 6 months. They can obviously file until the statute of limitations, which is another 2.5 years, or sorry, 3.5 years. And I'd prefer not to wait that long. So I think we just kind of need to move forward.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Conyers. Okay, Mr. Dickson, I said that you would get the final word. You've heard the recommendations. Again, we're at least talking about the Adderall here. I'm not taking a position on the other 2 allegations. But is there anything further that we need to consider as we look at that?
I just wanted to really, it's important to me, the text message with the circle and me allegedly talking about going to rob something. Was there a burglary done at that area?
Well, Mr. Dickson, we're done with the evidentiary part of the hearing.
Mr. Johnson, I kind of feel like that's just a shot in the dark for them. I mean, if there was a burglary that happened, then yes, I would totally like, that's not okay. So.
Okay, hang on, Mr. Dickson. Mr. Ferris?
State would just object to him being able to testify about the evidentiary portion that's been closed.
Okay. Ms. Conyers, any comment on that?
No, I'll submit on that.
Okay. So, Mr. Dickson, we are done with the evidentiary part. So if you have something to say about the recommendations or your release or how you've been doing in prison, we can talk about that. But as far as the evidence, we're closed on that.
I would ask the board, please send me to a halfway house. Let me help me get my life back together. Because I've been in prison my whole life. I've been 13 years at least. I've been 3,500 days on this robbery charge. That's the only felony I'm on right now. And it's been hell for me. I respect that going to a halfway house or to a program of my choice. I mean, that's the best thing for me unless I'm just hated like the one guy does. He just hates me. Because I get it. I look terrible, I guess. But this is about rehabilitation and helping us get better. Right now, I'm sitting in Max staring at the wall, and it just makes it worse. And that's why I created myself to this way, because I've had terrible upbringing in here, and it's not been good for me. I need something to help me get better, not just to make me just sit here and think about what I want to do to be stupid for the day to try and help me feel better. That's all I got to say, I guess.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Counsel, any final matters?
Nothing from the state.
Nothing, thank you.
Okay. All right. Again, I'm sure everybody knows, but we'll make our decision by majority vote. It'll probably be about 1.5 to 2 weeks. We'll get that decision to you in writing. We do post those on our website, so people who are observing, you'll be able to see on the board website as soon as we make a decision. And thank you. That concludes our hearing.